This week, we're finishing Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, otherwise known as God Forbid We Take a Carriage in the Rain.
Hi readers, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Katie.
And welcome to Not Another Heroine, the podcast where we break down the best and worst fictional heroines, those swashbuckling ladies who have to work a little harder than expected for their happy ending.
Want to see what's next on our TBR list? Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Instagram for a sneak peek at upcoming content or to help us pick our next book.
Before we get right back into where we left off with Dora and Elias, so I'd like to talk a little bit about Dora's curse and what it could potentially represent.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't pick this up on the first read, but this time around, I thought it was almost like a good representation of individuals who are on the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the same, what's the right word? Tendencies, so the inability to recognize and or understand social cues and saying the wrong thing, that whole horse dolphin thing in the beginning, which is completely out of the blue, but how do you respond to that? It's just occurred to her and she's like, I'm gonna throw that out there, and you're like, okay. But also feeling separate and apart and not like other people. And then that whole needing more time to process emotions, that whole blank slate and general state of being for Dora, and that she needs, when she does feel things, it's this this whole long-tailed emotional thing where she doesn't feel it immediately, but when she steps a few paces back and processes, she realizes, that comment made me really sad. Yeah. And I don't like that.
Oh, yeah. That makes me...
Yeah.
I also didn't pick up on this on the first read either. We talked about it briefly before we started recording, and I was like, holy fuck, Jordan, that's some miracle, what is it called? Rain Man? You know what I mean? But pulling out these incredible analyses from a book that I was this is sparkly and it makes me feel good.
I wouldn't say that. So I have family members and close friends who are on the spectrum. So if you interact with people who are on the spectrum, and I've had a few conversations with one of my close friends who really struggles with a lot of the recognizing social cues and being able to read facial expressions. Yeah. She really struggles with. And so it makes it hard because I am not a very expressive person, in my face. I'm pretty stone-faced most of the time. Yeah. And so it was hard for us in the beginning of our friendship, because our friendship started at age 12.
She's like, this chick's a bitch.
Exactly. She's like, she's a bitch, but I'm going to make her my friend.
I feel that.
So not any wild leaps on my part, just being around people like this. It was really nice to see that representation in a book, because too often we get these extremely emotional characters who are too busy spending the story fixing their emotional mistakes. This was nice. I also thought it was a good foil for Elias, who is very emotional and lashes out. So where we left off, right? Yeah. Elias lashes out at these people who care for him and are trying to take care of him and see to his needs. And he's like, nah, fuck you people. You guys need to put all of your money into the orphanage. Yep. And you're not good people, and I'm going to leave.
Yep. I think it's a good too, because I think Elias responds to Dora's very even-keeled responses to his things, because we'll get to it later and I don't want to spoil it yet, but there's a moment where Dora kind of says something very Elias is kind of spinning out a little bit yeah, and Dora's like, oh no, it's just this, and he's like, oh, excuse me. Just very even-keeled. She's like, no, I'm just going to tell you what's going on. We'll get to it when it happens. But I feel he responds well to her lack of...
Yeah, it's really good. And I think you see that in real life too. Yeah. People balance each other out with their extremes. So if you have a friend who's extremely emotional and you're like, okay, let's talk about our emotions. It's the same thing with Elias and Dora, and it's so nice to see.
He's like, oh, I don't need to freak out. And you don't feed into it too, because I think we've all known those two super emotional people who are maybe in a relationship or a friendship, and it's you guys just stress each other out. This is not healthy.
You don't belong together, not at all.
Yeah.
It's when you see people like that who are together, their highs are so high and they're blissfully happy and everything is like a fairy tale, but their lows are the world is ending.
And they feed off of each other's negative energy, and then it gets more.
Nope.
But Dora and Elias.
Very
well
Okay, where we left off, Dora convinced, with Lady Calloway's help, to Elias to return. So it's this same evening, and then collectively as a group, like, oh, it's a late dinner. We're not going to go back home because a home is like an hour or two carriage ride, I guess.
And it's raining outside. It's absolutely pouring cats and dogs. It's sprinkling.
So God forbid we take a carriage in the rain. So they end Sorry.
Sometimes you're so killed me. Okay, please continue.
I'm channeling Dora right now. Oh my God. We're not going to make it through this episode. Okay. Dora and Vanessa and the evil aunt stay the night at Albert's house with his family. But Dora wakes up kind of in the middle of the night and she wants to check on Elias, I think, if I'm remembering this part correctly. But she doesn't have her like handy little like Regency iPhone hand mirror. So she goes wandering the halls because that's what Dora does. Dora does.
I fucked up trying to copy you fucking up.
I know. So we'll make it through, maybe. She's looking for like a mirror or something to contact Elias with, because even though they're staying in the same house, like it's not appropriate.
I mean, that wouldn't even be appropriate now. Sneaking off to a guy's room in the middle of the night.
I just want to check on you, buddy. Like, how you feeling?
Yeah, that'll fly.
Not at all. So she's like, I think in a hallway, and she finds a mirror. And she's attempting to like scry through this mirror. And Elias has all of these like internal wards up, like to prevent people from spying on him, basically. And then all of a sudden, he appears behind her. And they have this kind of like interlude is the only way I can describe it. And Elias summons some magical candlelight to hide them.
I forgot this happened. Yeah.
It's really cute. And yeah, because Dora's kind of oblivious to the fact that she's in a nightgown. It's the middle of the night. And Elias is like, well, this is inappropriate, but also I like you.
Yep.
Let's handle it.
Just having a late night rendezvous with not a lot of rendezvousing happening.
Exactly. So he creates this kind of like cloud of light for them to hide in, which I thought was super cute because he wants to protect her reputation. And so
despite being an asshole. So as they're kind of checking on each other, Elias is probably feeling vulnerable because like he done fucked up. That was a lot. Yeah.
And he's like, this is the one person who is still being nice to me. Mm-hmm. And he kind of reveals a little bit more about himself and tells Dora about how he was actually raised in fairy, which is kind of lines up with what he looks like, because he doesn't look like normal. Like the platinum blonde hair, he's very handsome, but he's also, his mannerisms too, with how he interacts with people is very abrupt.
Oh.
And that's probably like having to live with asshole fairies for the first.
When we get to the later parts in this, everything's going to click. So just remember this.
Yeah.
He's brash, but it could be from his upbringing.
Yeah. It might not be his fault.
Yeah.
And then he also kind of shares with Dora the battle that he and Albert were with, and like the circumstances surrounding how he saved Albert's life and how Albert actually saved him as well. It's this very intimate kind of bonding. Yeah. Like it's the first true intimate moment between these two characters where like there's no fighting, there's no game playing, there's just these two people being honest with each other.
Yeah. At first, like bearing souls.
Yeah.
So to say.
And Dora's kind of like in this unique position where she's never been like romantically close to someone. Mm-mm. And so watching this very awkward character try and describe what it feels like to be like, oh, this is pleasant, I feel warm. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I don't know what that means, but I like it. Yep. It's very cute.
She calls it like a hot lantern or something.
Yeah. I think Elias puts his arm around her because like they only have so much like safety shroud to hide in.
And he's like, you've got to be cold. And she's like, I don't know, I don't really feel anything. And then he's like, I'll just put my arm around you to be safe.
Let me take advantage of this man moment to like, you're cold, I'm warm, come here.
But then she like also like leans her head on his chest. Like it's a very adorable, like this is equal sides.
Yes. Well, the next day, everyone wakes up, no one discovers them. Like this, like in a Regency novel, like this is the moment in the candlelight shroud, like you're discovered and oh my God, it's Candle, let's get married. Yeah. That doesn't happen here. So it's the next day, and Albert hands off some French translations, which he had agreed to work on for Elias. But he's like, no, I got to go run, do some doctor shit and doctor shit. And he asked Dora to like finish them. And I think they had like a prearranged thing with this whole French translation.
That was from the dinner when he's like, oh,
yeah, that's true. And so these translations are for Elias to try and solve the sleeping plague. So Albert goes off to one of the workhouses, and instead of Dora going with him because she's staying home to work on these translations, he ends up taking Miss Jennings and Vanessa. I thought this was super cute because
it was.
Vanessa's like, I need to understand what Dora was trying to say about me, like caring about other people.
I felt like too it was Vanessa's chance. Like, I don't really care necessarily about like what happens with these poor people, which sounds like really horrible, but it's like you can only have so many priorities, and that's not one for her. But she's like, I care about you enough to care about the things that you care about. And so she's like making an effort to like, I don't really get it, but this means something to you, so I'm gonna go. That was how I read it, like at first.
Well, so to take it to like a kind of a dark societal turn here, we have the same kind of reactions when we're driving around and we see homeless encampments and we see people panhandling on the street. Like, these people obviously need some kind of help, but like, how much emotional effort can you expend into caring for them? Like, not to sound callous, but like, this is to do justice to Vanessa as a character.
Yeah. I think it's a reasonable response, though. And it also makes her a more interesting character.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make her like the perfect, like, you know, pink fairy princess blonde, you know, perfect daughter. It's like, no, she can be like kind of callous too.
It was nice. And that kind of also plays into Vanessa being the strong one. Like, Vanessa's the one who saves Dora from the fairy king.
She fucking stabs him, dude.
Yeah. And she's also the reason why, like, Lord Sorcier is helping Dora with her curse. Like, go Vanessa. So they all go off to the workhouses to, you know, help people. When they return, Miss Jennings has a black eye, and Albert has, like, apparently punched someone in the face, like the evil overlord of the workhouse, because he said something insulting to Miss Jennings, and he like used his metal hand to like beat the shit out of him, which, like, go Albert.
You're probably dead.
Yeah. And then Vanessa's like a hot mess. She's like, this is too much for my ladylike sensibilities.
I like that you said overwrought, because that's exactly, like, she's like huddled in a chair when Dora finds her.
Yeah. Like, nothing happened to Vanessa. She just watched everything happen.
This is too much.
Yeah. This is never going out again.
Nope.
So there's another ball that is coming up. So this is the evening of the ball. I forget for why or what reason there's a ball, but they're going to it because it's a
this is the Lady Cushing's ball that they were talking about, right?
Yes.
The one where perchance Mr. Elias is like, save me a dance, and she's like, you're not even going to come to this. So if you do, I'll reward you with 2 dances. And he's like, you mistake my determination. Please, Jordan, tell me why that is now relevant again. I hope you guys kept it in your little pockets.
Yep. Okay. So Dora is relegated to only using one maid.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Poor Dora. We laugh, but like, in the scheme of things. Like,
with all those ties and shit.
Yeah. Like, Vanessa like has someone doing her hair and someone doing her makeup and like getting her ready. And Dora's like, how do I get this dress up and tied and staying on me? Because she's also wearing a borrowed dress. She doesn't like have enough ball gowns of her own because basically the aunt hates her. Yeah. So she eventually gets ready. She starts out the evening at this ball, kind of sitting on the sidelines like a wallflower with the aunts. And then our favorite little bunny of a sorcier.
I got so giddy.
Elias like strides into the room very commandingly so, and he like walks up to her. He's like, hey, I want my 2 dances, and you promised me any dances. And Dora's like, what the fuck is going on?
I didn't think you were actually going to come here, but oh my God.
And so like Elias like sweeps her out of the corner, like onto the floor. And Dora's like, oh my God, we're waltzing. Like, waltzing? What? It's so romantic. And so Dora feels almost giddy and pleasant. And she later describes this as happiness. And like previously, she had struggled to explain to Elias, like, I don't know that I've ever felt happiness.
Because when they're dancing, he's like, how are you feeling right now? And she's like, I think I'm happy. Oh, just like smiling absently, and he's like, "Did it, got her."
He's got like such a like man pride moment going on right now, and then
like I made her smile.
And then talk about flexes. So
God.
as they're dancing together, Elias is like, "Let's really turn on the charm." And so he's like, "Watch this." And so he summons these magical little twinkly lights to decorate the entire ballroom. And I imagine they're like cute little fireflies because a bunch of them come and land on her dress, her borrowed dress that she didn't feel like super pretty in. And so she's this sparkly little like whirling around the ballroom. And Elias has probably got this shit-eating grin on his face like, "I did that." Like, that's my woman.
Oh, God. I'm okay. I'm going to swoon again. It's fine.
Yeah. So, like, and they end up not just dancing 2 dances, they dance all night.
The lights are turned down low so no one knows.
Yeah.
They're scandalous.
It's very scandalous. And Dora's like, "I don't care because I don't care about things." And Elias is like, "I don't give a shit because I just don't give a shit.
I am the Lord Sorcier.
I do what I want." But like also there's all these twinkly lights all over the ballroom. So everyone is like, a magic display? Like this never happens. Like what's going on here? It's very cute. And the ball is also a success for Vanessa, who seems to have secured like the interest of Albert's older brother, Edward, who's, who's the heir. And
oh, hold on. Are we going to skip past the morning after?
What happens the morning?
They're all eating breakfast and everyone's like, "Oh my God, the Lord Sorcier did all of that." Like, and the Lady Cushing is like, "Oh my God, like, yeah, I normally just invite him to be nice and like he never comes, but like I have a secret soft spot for this man and that, he did this whole amazing decorate the whole ballroom just to make me happy and everything." And everyone's like, "Oh my God, but I saw him like dancing with some chick like the whole night." And then everybody's like, "Wait a second, they were dancing with that like one chick, like the other cousin." And everybody's like, "The other cousin? Like, I thought it was just Vanessa. Who's this like Dora chick?" And they're like, "Oh, he was dancing with Dora the whole time." And Dora's like, "No, I don't think so. We only had 2 dances. It was dark. He didn't see anything." Adorable.
I don't think I need to go over the scene.
Sorry.
No, I think I couldn't put it any better.
It was just so cute because she has this moment of like, "Oh, everyone like thought it was also cute, and I thought it was cute." And then like,
well, it's cute that she tries to do like a little social like play. Like, if I just say that it was only 2 people will believe me, and no one's like, "I don't believe shit."
Yeah, everybody's like, "Really, girl? We have eyes."
So like they have breakfast together, and then Edward, the heir, Albert's brother, comes calling, and everyone thinks it's to propose to Vanessa. So Dora is hauled away by the evil aunt, who's concerned that like Dora's weirdness is going to alienate Edward and ruin this potential engagement. So she locks Dora away and like instructs her like, "You're not staying here. Pack your shit, change your clothes. We're putting you in a carriage and sending you back to the country." Like basically you have served your purpose. Dora has got her engagement, which is the only reason she wanted you here. And yeah, bye.
So fucked up.
Like
it hurts.
It's really so. Dora attempts to protest. She's like, "But hey, like Vanessa would want me here for her wedding."
She said so.
Yeah, and also like the Lord Sorcier is courting me, and you want to send me away right now?
Yeah, because even she's like, "Why would he marry you?" or some shit, and I'm like, "Oh, you did not need to."
Yeah, like the aunt just doesn't like I get the impression that she just legitimately dislikes Dora, like doesn't want to have anything to do with her and just feels obligated to take care of her. Yeah, it's really bad. So Dora's back in her room and she's frantically searching for the scrying mirror because her first intent is like, I need to get a hold of Elias. Like maybe he doesn't like me, but like at least he can help me here. And so she finds that her little hand mirror that Elias gifted her, as well as the flowers that he gave her, have been taken away, like one thing after another. It's just fucking awful.
That's like insult onto injury. Like not only am I dragging you out of London kicking and screaming, but I'm also going to throw away the nice things in your life.
It's awful. But she ends up finding another mirror and it's like on the back of a wardrobe or something. Mm-hmm. So she tries to scry for Elias again, but again, he's got wards up and she ends up just seeing herself. But it's a different version of herself. So she sees herself kind of dressed in like really nice gown, sitting at a piano, and she's fucking bawling.
Bawling.
Like the world is ending, like brokenhearted bawling. And she's like, "What the fuck is going on?" So she like tries to say something, and like this herself like turns around and they have this kind of engagement conversation. And she realizes it's her other half.
The other half of her soul.
The other Theodora. And she kind of puts all the pieces together. Dora realizes like, oh shit, this is fairy. This is the other half of my soul.
Uh-oh.
What the fuck is going on? And so she's like trying to kill the like scrying mirror thing. And then Lord Hallivale strides into this room that she is scried into, and he's like, oh, hello, my firstborn English daughter.
Yep. You're whole now. Perfect.
You're whole. Welcome to fairy. And she tries to leave, and Dora is stuck. I think Lord Hallivale does some sort of like thread snipping.
Oh, yeah. He's like, you're going to stay here. You're stuck to me now. But it's also sad. So Dora saw her other self because as she's thinking about Elias and like, oh, maybe he does want to like court me. She's like, oh, he's only going to want to court me if I'm whole. And so her thinking about being whole again is what made her see. That's so fucked up. That got me hurted. I hurt my own feelings.
Yeah. And well, what's really weird is because the other Dora, who like Dora christens Theodora, is like, I don't know why I'm sad, but like I'm sad because of this person that I've never met before. And like,
I think I love him.
I love him. And like sad, bawling. Yeah. So now Dora is stuck in fairy with her twin half.
And no one knows she's there.
No one knows. And then Lord Hallivale is just kind of this weird character who's like
he is scary almost.
He is terrifying, kind of like a psychopathic fairy lord.
Yeah.
But he's like, oh, my daughter is back whole again, and I'm going to give you all of the lessons, and you will be the best English daughter. And he keeps making references to like English, which
and to being virtuous.
Yeah. Ugh. Ugh, gross. But I thought this was, stepping out of the story for a second. I thought this was a super cool technique by the author to make these fairies, like these fairy lords, seem really foreign and alien, because like he's obsessed with having an English daughter and like teaching her English things. And it's because they're completely different culture, different world, and it's like the way we view, like if we were to meet an alien society, we'd want to know more about them, and we'd try to copy, like maybe they have cool techniques. We're like, we don't know what that means, but we're gonna try and do it anyway. I thought it was cool.
Yeah. It's almost scary though, because they're taking everything in a very like fairy approach of like blowing it out of proportion. And so they're taking the very extremes of English society. Like
Theodore like ends up playing piano for 3 days straight.
Yeah, he's like, you need to be more virtuous by playing the piano because like I know that English women and English young daughters are seen as extremely virtuous if they're good at playing the piano. And he left her there playing for 3 days, and then her like fingers started bleeding because she couldn't get back up. Like, that's fucked up. That's
it's terrifying because it's not malicious.
Yeah.
It's just this desire to like have and do things that they don't understand.
Yeah, and it's like not even thinking twice about things. Like, oh, yep, that answered my first immediate need. I'm going to go do whatever the fuck later. And it's like, that's an actual person that is now forced to play piano for 3 days straight. Like, there are consequences.
I think this is the first time I've read like a fairy kind of style character where they truly feel like a foreign entity.
Yeah.
Not like you're like a human with pointy ears and you're really pretty.
Yeah. Because even in The Cruel Prince, that series, I felt like the fairies were like mean, but they still had human tendencies behind the meanness, But like the fairies in this are mean unintentionally. They're
not human at all.
Yeah.
So well done.
Yeah. Especially for such a short book that this isn't like, it's a main part, obviously, but it takes up only like a quarter of the book, maybe. Like, she did a fucking phenomenal job at making these aliens.
Yeah.
See, I said alien.
That's what they feel like, though. But so Lord Hallivale kind of leaves them to their own devices. And he's like, oh, my daughters are back. So they try and devise a way to escape. So they end up smashing a window. And as they're escaping down a tree, Theodora lets slip that Lord Hallivale is probably off to go buy another child. And she says this so like, this is what he does. Yeah. Because like she has spent her entire life in fairy, and it's like, this is normal for her. And Dora's like, what?
Excuse me.
Buy a child? That's like illegal. But she kind of puts it all together very quickly, and that the children who are under the sleeping plague, because Dora or Theodora also lets slip that they don't have physical bodies in this land. And these are the pieces that like Dora's like, oh, this makes sense. All the children are getting stolen, like their souls are getting stolen by fairies. That's why they're sleeping. So Theodora takes her to the place called Charity House, which is like depressing, but also like a fun twist on like how would a completely foreign entity interpret what a workhouse looks like.
Yeah.
And they call it a charity house because that's the intent behind it. And this is where Dora sees some of like the more recognizable children that they've been trying to save for the last, I don't know, however many weeks. And then as they're there, I think they hide, and then Lord Halavale.
Say what the kids were doing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't like, it's such a.
It gives me the heebie-jeebies.
So I think the kids were weaving and unweaving like a certain type of thread.
Like rope. It's like a hemp rope.
Yeah, it was like a hemp rope. And they were just sitting there endlessly weaving and unweaving because they needed work to do. But the work isn't doing anything. That's these fairies' interpretation of a workhouse. Is like, oh, they're just doing this mindless task to do a task, not because the task itself has a purpose.
Yeah. By doing the task, they're becoming more virtuous.
It's this hyper focus on like.
And their hands are all fucked up because they're like forced to only do that.
Yeah. It's bad. So Halavale arrives at the charity house, and they watch him, and he's got a newborn.
Oh my God.
And like Dora's like, what the fuck is this guy gonna do
What
with
is
like
happening?
a newborn? And so as they're there, like, I think they end up getting discovered. Lord Halavale confronts them. They're like, is that how that goes? I think I'm getting it somewhat confused.
I don't really remember the order of things, but they're like hiding under the table, and then the sleeping girl is like, oh, I'll take care of the baby because taking care of the baby will make me more virtuous because I'm trying to make it more virtuous. And he's like, okay. And then I think they get caught after maybe. Oh, no, they get caught then.
Okay, but they have to scry again.
Yeah.
So Dora, before they're discovered by Lord Halavale, Dora and Theodore managed to use some like soapy bathwater to act as a mirror to try and get a hold of Elias. This is like one last ditch attempt. And this is such a super cute scene.
It is.
And it's so, anyway. So she's like, I'm thinking about Elias, and he kind of wavers into existence in this like bath puddle, and she sees him sitting next to her like prone sleeping body, and he is a wreck. He's like hair tousled, tired, hungry, feeling sad, and like Dora like reaches out and like pets him, and he's like, Elias, I'm here. And he looks up and he's like panicked, like what? And he kind of really pieces it together pretty fast, like, oh, okay, so this is her soul. She's stuck in fairy, and she also explained like, hey, all the kids are here too. Can you like find a way to come save me? Like, I'm not asking you to come to fairy because I know you don't want to come back here. And he's like, bitch, of course I'm going to come save you. Like, Dora's very like, I understand if you don't want to come, but also could you find a way to come rescue us
and all of the children that you're trying to save?
And so I feel like there's like an Elias eye roll in this moment.
Yeah, like, are you fucking for real?
But also this next scene. So he explains to her that he has tried everything from her translations to try and wake her up. And she's like, oh, really? Everything? And so Dora like latches onto that because one of the curses that one of the like cures she had translated from French is that a way to wake someone up from a sleeping curse is true love's kiss. Yeah. So Dora very kindly, like in a patronizing tone, kind of explains to Elias, like, obviously, honey, that didn't work because you would have to love me. And Elias is like silent and a little like, he kind of turns his head down, like, I don't know what to say to that. And then Dora, she's like, she comforts him and she says, it's okay. I love you. And I just put those pieces together. But also, I know that's not what you're supposed to say in these circumstances. So I know it's weird, but yeah.
I love this whole fucking interaction because like this is kind of the continuation of what we were talking about earlier, how Elias is like a crazy, well, not crazy, but he's like very expressive, very emotional, and he's kind of like freaking out and pacing back and forth like, how the fuck am I going to get her back? Like, I don't want to go to fairy, like the place is scary. And she's like, oh, just like sitting on the bed very like calmly, she's like, oh no, it's okay, like I love you.
It's okay that you don't love me.
Things are going to be fine. And he's like, Well,
it's also like her, like you never doubt for a second that Dora fully believes that Elias doesn't care for her.
Yeah.
She's so convinced of her own weirdness, like her own like inability to feel emotions the same way as other people, that she doesn't think someone can care for her. And I don't know, we love, like Katie and I dear readers, we love when one character doubts or doesn't believe in like the emotions of like the partner character. Like it's just that one more piece of romantic tension. Like, oh, it's so good. They have this little exchange, but Hallivale appears. Like he breaks up the scene again, and Elias, like I imagine Elias is losing his shit in the background because Dora disappears. But Dora and Theodora manage to convince Lord Hallivale that they need to have a proper English ball because the last time that Dora was happy was at a ball dancing with Elias, and that they will be able to merge together into the same one whole soul if they're both feeling this very strong emotion at a ball. So this weird line of reasoning manages to convince Lord Hallivale that, yes, I'm going to throw an English ball. And he sends some brownies in to like dress them in in a dress made of lost memories, which I thought was like, oh, that's a fun little fairy thing.
Yep. Except for the necklace of children's tears.
Yeah, that's where the tears came from. Yeah, necklace of like pearls, which are like, yeah,
made of children's tears.
Children's tears. It's very foreign and alien and very fairy. Yeah. And going back to the whole focus on virtue, so they hold this English ball in fairyland, and Dora cannot see anyone. Everyone's invisible until she's properly introduced, because this is yet another tool that the fairies have devised. Like, oh, well, this is virtuous. Like, you can't see anyone until you're properly introduced, because that's what the English do, which a small price to pay for propriety.
Oh, and she has a chaperone.
Yeah, who's fucking demonic.
Terrifying.
Like this chaperone's like, I'm going to pull your eyes out of your head if you look at anyone.
Yeah, if you make eye contact with any men that you're not married to.
Yeah. But like, what a great satire on like how ridiculous like that period in our history was. Like, this is dumb. Anyway, so Dora is dancing, and so as she's introduced to these fairies, they become visible to her, and she gets to meet Lord Blackthorn, who's this very quirky, less ominous fairy.
I love him.
And he's like, oh, this is interesting. Like, hi, I'm Lord Blackthorn. Nice to meet you. And she kind of wraps up with him, and she's
during their conversation, though, she's like running out of things to say because he's like, oh, let's talk about the weather. And she's like, well, people talk about other things besides the weather. And then she's like, oh, maybe they don't actually talk about anything besides the weather. And she's like, if you had a horse and a dolphin mated together, what would they look like? And he's like, oh, obviously it would have to have, the head of a dolphin because horses can't breathe underwater. And she's like,
that makes sense.
That is.
But also, it just clicked for me. Dora has found her people.
Yeah, she has.
Like, they're just as weird and awkward as she is.
Yep.
And it works.
Yep, it does.
So they have this kind of pleasant little fun, cute interaction. And then she gets handed off to another partner.
No, you got to talk about the virtue part.
The virtue? What virtue?
They're like, who do you think is the most virtuous person?
Jesus. You explain it.
So she asked him that question. He's like, okay, I get a question. Who do you think is the most virtuous person in all of England? And she's like, I think the most virtuous person in all of England is the Lord Sorcier Elias Wilder. And he's like, oh, why is he so virtuous? Does he have a lot of money? And she's like, well, I mean, yeah, but that's not what makes him virtuous. He's kind and he cares about people and he's kind of an asshole, but he takes care of poor children and he loves people and I love him too. It's so cute.
It is very cute. And like, just as they're wrapping up their conversation, there's like another partner that strolls up and like her chaperone's like, oh, this is Lord Longshadow. And so she like is looking down at this elves fairy's boots, and she notices that there are these worn boots kind of similar to Lord Blackthorn, and so they start dancing, and then she hears Elias's voice.
Except Lady Morningwood is like, remember to bring her back before the end of the dance or you're going to have to marry her.
Yeah, so yeah, that's actually really important. So Elias, who's masquerading as a fairy named Lord Longshadow, is like, sure, fine, not a problem for me. So they're dancing, and Elias like very quickly spins her up and he's like, I brought your scissors, here you go, they're iron. And they devise this very quick plan. Like, I'm going to distract Lord Hallivale. You need to cut the threads that bind you to him. That's why your soul is here, is all of these threads. So if you cut those, you will wake up and everyone will be back in their bodies. So, and then as they're also devising this plan, Elias lets slip that he murdered his fairy dad. Because that's how inheritance is handled in fairy. just random. Like there's these weird moments of very graphic violence that appear in the story that are just absolutely out of place.
Yep.
Yeah. So Elias's disguise is like quickly falls apart and he's revealed. And Dora kind of sneaks off. There's some distraction happening. It's a very busy scene, but basically Dora has her scissors. She runs up to sneak off and snip these threads that tie her to Lord Hallivale. Meanwhile, Elias and Lord Hallivale are about to duel.
You forgot to say why they're gonna duel.
Oh, you explain it.
No.
Yes.
We'll just recut it.
Oh my God.
This is I love this.
Oh my God. So after Elias's disguise is revealed, her chaperone's like, you danced more than
the song ended.
The song ended and they're still dancing. You must marry her. And he's like, sure.
She's like, what? Nobody ever says sure.
Yeah, so they don't know what to do. And it's kind of like out of character for a fairy to be like, yeah, I'm just going to marry this bitch.
And Dora's like, wait a second, what?
Yeah. And so everyone's like losing their mind. It's revealed that it's like the Lord Sorcier. And then Lord Hallivale like comes to avenge his English daughter's virtue or something. And he's like, well, we're going to have a duel. And so Elias, I'm going to beat the shit out of you, dude. So like,
I love the other guys like, oh, I've never seen an English duel before. This is exciting.
I'll be your second. And like all of this is happening. And then so Dora uses this as an excuse to like sneak away, cut the threads. So she comes up behind Lord Hallivale and she has this moment where she's like, I think I just need to do this thing. And so instead of snipping the threads, she fucking stabs him. She stabs Lord Hallivale in the back with these iron scissors. And iron is poison to fairies because have you read this genre before?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he starts like basically disintegrating in front of her. And just before he's dying, she just killed him, her fairy dad. And she's about to like snip the threads, I think, or
the threads are like hanging in the air and she's about to grab them.
Yeah. And then her like other half, Theodora, runs up, grabs the threads and is like, I am now Lady Hallivale and I'm here. But it's like it was kind of a weird point in the story because I don't think it was quite handled right. Like I needed a little bit more description of like what's going on with the background here. But I think what's meant to happen is, this is the other twin basically claiming her own body and claiming a role in fairy and taking control. So like no one else can do this again.
Because I think Elias even comments, he's like, are you sure you're going to do that? Like before she grabs the threads, she's like, you're going to be stuck here forever. Like that's the raw end of the deal. You're fucking stuck in fairy with a bunch of psychopaths.
Yeah. But Theodora's like, this is the right thing to do. So she takes the threads and she tells Dora like, I'm going to give you your thread and all of the living children back. And so she gives the threads back and Dora wakes up back in the real world. So she is in her bedroom, like where she left off, basically. And it's been several days and she's very weak. And she spends a few days recovering. People are taking care of her. I think the aunt has kind of disappeared from view. Like
she like feels bad about how she treated her.
Exactly.
But not bad enough to not treat her bad in the first place.
Yeah. So after like a few days where she's like kind of feeling back to normal, Dora has a caller and it is Elias. And he has arrived with flowers because he forgot flowers the first time he called on her. And so she goes down to meet him and they have this very cute kind of wrap it all up interlude in the parlor where he confesses all of his annoying emotions for her. And I love this line so much. This was not my favorite scene between the two of them because I felt like it was kind of superfluous at this point. But he tells her, I love that you are kind, but almost never nice. As like a counterpoint to Vanessa, who's always seen as like really nice, but not always super kind.
Yeah.
And despite all of her cautions, because like she never got her other half back. So she's stuck living in this like, doesn't feel emotions the same way. And she's like, I'm never going to be whole. And he tells her that he loves her just exactly the way she is.
Aww.
And she kind of closes out like with this internal thought, like, this is the dream in which I live.
Oh, I'm okay. This is fine.
It's a very cute story. The epilogue actually has a lot like of more wrapping up and stuff happening. But I think this is a super cute point to end on.
Yeah, it is. It's a good wrap up for everything because it's cute too. Because I think when Lady Morningwood or whatever, the chaperone, is like, "Oh, you have to marry her now," and he's like, "Okay," and Dora's like, if he's amenable to that, I mean, I guess that's okay." And it's funny because now at the end, when he has to like confess his loves or whatever, he's like, "I can't just say like if you're amenable to marriage, like I have to ask you something a little bit more fancy and like fruitful than that." And she's like, "Well, I mean, I guess if you want to." It's like, girl, just let him express his love for you.
It's so cute. It's very Dora. It's very Elias.
It was adorable.
This was a very cozy book.
Yeah, it makes you feel all like sparkly and cute and like, ah,
yeah,
warm.
Yeah.
A lantern.
Like a lantern hug from,
Adorable.
So please read this book.
Yeah, that's it. Just read this book.
Yeah, it's not going to cost you anything. It'll cost you a couple hours and that's it. You're not going to walk away feeling like you missed anything.
No, because it's such a low bar of investment for what you're getting out of it. You're getting all these like happy, like feel-good endorphins the whole time.
Yeah. You do not need to read like another 500-page book one of a trilogy about a super special heroine who lost her parents and needs to fight for a kingdom. Like, read this book.
Nope.
So, all right. Thank you for listening. And from our shelf to yours.
We'll see you on the next page. Hi, readers. If you'd like to help us pick our next book, send us a message on Instagram.
Or if you'd like to just listen, we post new episodes every Monday and Wednesday on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Thanks for listening.
Bussin'.